Welcome to the Wolf Connection podcast. I'm your host, John Kalfa. Let's talk about some wolves. We are honored to have with us today Rachel Tilseth. She's coming to us from Wisconsin. She is an author of The Wolves of Douglas County News. She is also a volunteer winter wolf tracker since the year 2000 with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. She's an artist, an educator, environmentalist. She has many talents. Rachel, it is great to have you here with Stephen and myself. How are you doing in Wisconsin?
I'm doing great. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to just sort of jump right into, I think, really one of the major reasons that we wanted to have you on is to discuss the Wisconsin wolf hunt that took place this year, and it has been taking place, I guess, over the course of years out there in Wisconsin. And you're a huge advocate for wolves out in Wisconsin. So if you could just tell our audience what was different this year in late February of 2021 with the wolf hunt that took place as opposed to the other years, and why it was such a polarizing hunt.
Well, first of all, it took place in February, which is prime breeding season for gray wolves in Wisconsin. So that was one of the things. It was also a forced hunt where if you back up a while back, wolves in Wisconsin were delisted officially on January 4th. So then right away, the conservative Republicans that want to hunt and that pushed our Natural Resources Board, which is something that is supposed to be for the public, and it's kind of oversees public interests, the Natural Resources Board. And to shorten it up, I'll call them NRB. So right away, Senator Rob Stashholt, he is a bear hunter. He's with Wisconsin Bear Hunters, and now he is in the 10th District of Wisconsin. And he pushed the NRB, as soon as they were delisted, to hold a early wolf hunt in February 2021. And right there, everyone chimed on. They were invited. People were allowed to speak. The tribe overwhelmingly said, no, we don't want this. The Chippewa said no. And a lot of scientists, a lot of people weighed in. And at the meeting, even the DNR's legal advisor weighed in. So they voted no to have the wolf hunt by 4-3. So we thought, okay, no hunt, right? We're good. We're in the clear this time, because they planned on having one. And let me explain first, you have to understand that in 2011, Act 169 was enacted, which says it's a law that wolves in Wisconsin must be hunted when they're not on the endangered species list. So this is where they're coming from. It's a law. It hasn't been removed. I mean, I don't think there's any law that says animals have to be hunted except wolves. That tells you right there that this is politically driven. So anyway, we thought, okay, we're not going to have a hunt. This is good. Then all of a sudden, in comes Hunter Nation, a conservative advocacy group, and they are hunters, and they feel that their rights were violated. So they put up a lawsuit saying that you're violating our rights by not having this hunt, that you're supposed to have a hunt. And so, we were hoping, that the judge would side with what the NRB already said, that they didn't want to hunt. That wasn't the case. The Jefferson judge said, no, there has to be a wolf hunt. And just bang, just like that, they got together, the NRB, they put out a quota. They said, okay, 200 wolves. They got science. They got someone on the DNR to present science that said that's not going to be a problem. And so they decided 200 wolf quota. That's what they were going to do. So the hunt was set for I forget the date now. it's been it's been a tough couple weeks on this, but it was in early
Mhm.
February, and it was actually the last week in February, so it would actually end on the 28th. So I would open on a Monday, and so they put out, there would be 200 wolves, and then they did decide to give the tribe, the Chippewa, in the ceded territory, they were allowed to have some wolves,
Mm.
um, the quota. So that lowered the quota to, what was it, 119 that they could take. And so the other ones, the tribe they don't want to take. That's their brother. That's my Yingan. And, I just did a show with one of the Chippewa, and they stated that you don't hunt your brother. You don't want to do that with your brother. And so that was Marvin Defoe. And, they're very much against hunting. It's like, no. So anyway, everyone was in shock. Everybody was really mad. I was like, here we go again. We're going to have a wolf hunt in a week. The wolves are about 2 weeks pregnant. That's that's not good at all. 2 weeks. You know, they don't even hunt deer when they're pregnant.
Right.
That is just ridiculous, but that's what they decided to do. So the hunt, started, and I think they got about 2,000 and something tags, and I think that they said that something like that was there were more hunters in the woods than wolves.
Wow.
Our population is 1,000, 200 now, minus 219, and that's really sad. So, they just jumped into the woods. They are able to use dogs in Wisconsin. It's the only state that allows this. So, hound hunters can run the wolves down with dogs. And they use snowmobiles. I mean, they hit the woods and
Mm.
they went for it. And it was almost halfway met by Monday, first day of the hunt. So where there was no safety in that at all, where they could, how would they close the hunt down? How would they know how many? And rumor has it, that hunters were saying, don't report your kill so we can get more of them. I mean, this is a
Mhm.
totally vengeance hunt and a political hunt. And so by Wednesday, they decided to shut it down. They went way over quota by about 85%, I believe, down to, they even took the tribe's quota. It was 219 by the time they closed. And what happened was they gave the hunters 24 hours to report their kill. So that gave them plenty of room to go over. So this was a very mismanaged hunt. So you're going to, and also it's, Wisconsin's known right now. We have a black spot on our environmental record, and that really saddens me because I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, where we had, Gaylord Nelson. He started the first Earth Day. We have Aldo Leopold. We're very progressive in what we do, except over the last 10, 15 years, we've gone downhill, and that's because one party is in charge. It doesn't work. And that's where
Mm.
there's a lot of anger and outrage right now because nobody had a say. The only people that got a say was the lawsuit.
So, would you classify this the way that Wisconsin handled this particular hunt? Would you classify all of this as surprising as a Wisconsin resident, or is this in line with the historical social views of Wisconsin's towards wolves? Or did it surprise you to any degree? What would you have expected?
It doesn't surprise me because over that in 2011, I was tracking wolves, and that was my passion. I got to know some wolves and everything, and then all of a sudden, they were delisted, and bang, again, they wanted to hunt. And so I was
Mm.
shocked, and then they enacted the law, Act 169. Then they said dogs can go in there and chase them. I was in shock. I hit the ground running and I formed Wolves of Douglas County, Wisconsin, and began to fight at least the dog part, because that is so inhumane. That's so barbaric. But I got to tell you, this hunt this year really sets the tone for barbarism. We're going way back into an age when wolves were hunted down and killed like vermin and treated really badly. I mean, something that shocked me and just to my core was online. I heard a hunter talking about how wolves, when they set the dogs on him this time, didn't run. That bothered me because that showed what I've never had a problem with them in the woods. Never. I've seen them, I've been close to them, and they look at you and they have those beautiful green eyes. And they're so intelligent. You see the intelligence. And I respect them. And then this is happening. It wasn't called for. And so that really shook me. It shows how they're portrayed as the big bad wolf. And they're not. And I think that this is politically motivated.
So I was reading one of the blog posts that you had on Douglas County News with wolves. I don't know if it was yourself. I think it was by Jill Richardson, and correct me if I'm wrong. And she was, yeah. So, and I was reading this. I've read it a couple of times already, and it lays out a lot of what you were discussing. It seems as though this hunt that happened this year really stopped, I guess, some forward momentum that was happening where there seemed to be some headway being made in a positive direction on both ends with pro-wolf and, I guess, anti-wolf groups that are trying to figure out ways to manage this correctly. Is that an accurate representation of really what happened and in what you and Jill and others saw?
It's a very polarized topic. I worked with Adrian Wideven. He was the head wolf biologist for the Department of Natural Resources, and he was involved from 1991 until 2011 when he retired, but he's still involved. And he taught me a lot. He told me, he said, yeah, the wolf is the most polarized animal. They're either loved or hated, and you're just not going to meet in the middle. So yes, it's very polarized. But what made it worse, I think, is the ones in charge right now are the Conservative Party. They have the complete say in Wisconsin, and they want to work with their base, the hunters, which are shrinking. And I call these hunters fringe hunters because they don't represent the majority of hunters in Wisconsin. And a lot of the people, I think it's always the way it is that the loudest voices are the most extreme. Those are the ones that you hear. But what about the people, like Jill said, that really want to come to the table and talk about this? So at this point, we have a outdated plan, and we have a wolf hunt coming in that's going to be coming up in November. We don't have a choice in that. We have no way. But we're hoping a few of us, are hoping to mitigate the damage maybe and to have to talk about what was already done to them. Because when you look at this population now, April is the last day that we can track wolves, and because they're going to start denning up. And how sad is that? We don't even know what's going to happen with, I think it was 85% of them were female. So, the packs in Wisconsin are very small. For instance, where I track, it's only 24 square miles. That packs. It's not like Yellowstone where you have all this land. Here you have a lot of packs, and it's a small territory. So you have maybe 4 wolves. They rely on each other. They need each other. And if you take out one of them, that pack may disperse. They may starve to death because they can't feed themselves. And then where's the puppies? We don't have those puppies coming. So, if they were pregnant, they're not that pack is not going to have puppies. So it's very devastating. So now the Wisconsin DNR is coming up with having, transparency. They're all about having transparency. And I want to say this, that the Wisconsin DNR is kind of under the gun They are having to manage this. They were forced to manage this. They are kind of like ruled by the NRB, and then the hunt, then the lawsuit. So they're kind of in the middle, but they're committed to transparency. They said this before, and before the lawsuit took place, that they wanted to have transparency. They wanted to have the public involved. And when I was, I think in 2014, I was invited to the table to be on a focus group where we talked about the hunt, and where we talked about wolves, and it's a public attitudes survey about wolves. And the first thing I said at that, I said, if you're going to put that out to the public, send that to them in their mail. Please take the word harvest out. They're not carrots. So they did take that out. I told them, take that out. I wasn't the only focus group. I mean, that hunters and everyone. And that focus group turned out to be pretty favorable for wolves. It is sitting there. It's still a draft. And myself and others were hoping that they would do another one, a more current one, where we could find out the attitudes. And a lot of people understand right now that the DNR doesn't, they're not in favor of a hunt. A hunt should not happen. I do not believe that we need a hunt, because for like 2 years, the population was leveling off where they were controlling themselves, self-regulating, and they weren't growing. They were living within the territory, that they had. And considering the pack dynamics, I don't think we need a hunt. So now we're going to have this. They're going to invite people, to the table. The tribes get a say. So they're a category. I think there's 9 tribes in the state of the Chippewa. They will come in, and then the Ho-Chunk also will be involved in that. And then they have 6 seats for wolf advocacy to come to there. And then they have agriculture, they have hunters, they have all these categories. And so they're going to come, and try to be as transparent as they can and write a plan. And the plan will be finished in the summer of 2012. So there are plans to change things.
So given that the Wisconsin reintroduction, it wasn't a forced reintroduction, right? Correct? It was a natural reintroduction of wolves into the state.
Yeah, they came from Minnesota, and we really have them. We have Minnesota to the west of us, and our competitive state, you could say. But we had wolves come across into Douglas County, right. And that was interesting because I didn't know it at the time, but that's Douglas County is where I tracked, and that's why I'm called Wolves of Douglas County. Little interesting fact there is they were on the endangered species list, and so this biologist that was the first one, he traveled the state, Dick Thiel. He was a student, and he traveled the state, the border in Douglas County, trying to find packs that were finally, making territory there. He was looking, and he finally found that. And so he went to the Wisconsin DNR and said, "Now you got to give me a desk because we're going to start." He didn't say it exactly like that, but I think, he kind of told them, okay, they are establishing territories in Douglas County. Later on, that's the one I tracked. So I thought, wow, is that a coincidence? Does things happen by accident? I don't know. So no, they were not brought in and dropped in like they were in Yellowstone. These were, wolves coming in.
So does the natural reintroduction of wolves to Wisconsin offer them less protection or different types of protection than in other states where they were released by the federal government deliberately?
I don't know if that's, if that's so. I know that in Yellowstone, it's a park. Here, I don't think that really has anything to do with it because you look at Canada and you look at Michigan and you look at the corridors that the wolves can come through. They'll come through Canada into, the northern part of Minnesota, then make their way into, Wisconsin and Michigan. And that's a very healthy thing because we do need to have some diversity in the population. So that's really good that they're allowed to do that.
What's the dynamic or the relationship between the tribes that are there in Wisconsin, the public, the hunters and the groups that you're aligned with? Because it seems like there's four main groups that sort of make up this coalition when these hunts come around. So what are the different relationships and how do they interact with each other when this comes around every year?
So you mean with the tribe and then Humane Society
Correct. Yes.
and Center for Biologics? And then there's also Sierra Club. Well, Sierra Club, and they did their job really good. Sierra Club and Center for Biological Diversity, that's a real long one there. And also Humane Society filed to be in on the lawsuit, to stop the lawsuit. There was an appeal to stop it. But I don't know if this is true or not. I haven't gotten the exact facts on it, but the judge purposely left it open and didn't close it. So then the appeal wasn't going to go. So the appeal failed. The state went in and appealed. So they're doing a great deal. They'll, I'm sure Humane Society, I've talked with the Wisconsin head of the Humane Society, and they're going to be on there. And they're going to be working. Then there is Wisconsin Green Fire. I don't know if you've heard of them. And then Timber Wolf Alliance. And then another one is Timber Wolf Information Network. And that's the one where I was talking about the biologist. He started that one, the one Dick Thiel. So those are the main groups that are working to go in and make changes. And we had 10 years or more of where the former administration, the Republican administration, gutted the science end of the DNR, took all of that out. So now we have a lot of the retired biologists and scientists in Wisconsin's Green Fire. And that's kind of the name of the story about Aldo Leopold. I don't know if you're familiar with that story. And so they've started it and they have a plan and they'll come to the table. And then Timber Wolf Alliance was started when wolf recovery began in Wisconsin. The Adrian Wideven and a bunch of other ones wanted to have a public one, a public, it was all like DNR scientists, but they formed, Timber Wolf Alliance as for the public. And they have tracking classes and they have education classes about wolves. And so they'll come to the table. So all of those groups are hoping to come to the table and have some discussions.
Okay.
We don't even know where we're going to hold that line.
So what you were talking about the impact on the tribes in Wisconsin also about how they were given a quota. What has been their reaction and their response, I guess, moving forward with future wolf hunts and how they're going to step in and make their voices heard, maybe even more so than they've already been heard in the past?
Well, I just did a show with Marvin Defoe of the Red Cliff. They're way up north, tiny, way up there. Reservation, up there, and they said no hunting on their land, on their reservation. And I talked with him, and they would like to see collaboration between the states. They're not one to. They're all about negotiation and discussions and collaborating. They're not going to go in and order them around and say, this is the way we want this and you better follow it. That's not like them. But back in the, I think it was late 80s, they pushed that envelope when they discovered that they could, see what their treaty rights were like. And that's where this Voight decision comes in that gives them rights off on ceded territory. They kept those rights. And so they pushed that one and they went spearfishing. And that was quite the battle. I mean, I participated in it. I went up and was a silent witness. And it was not nice the way, people were calling them horrible names, I see a cat.
Oh,
I just had to say, I know. But it was a terrible time, but that decision worked, so that they could do that, so they could get that. And that kind of laying the groundwork for the tribes. So that's what they're doing. And I had a long discussion in a show with Marvin Defoe from Red Cliff. He's an elder, and he helped write the Mayingan protection plan. And I wanted to talk with him because I really like the word that they talk about. It's having a relationship with Mayingan, not a management, because I think we've gone too far with this management. One of my philosophy is using compassionate conservation. That's an ethic that's starting to make its way around. So I feel like the Miangan relationship plan is the best way to go. And he said, you don't hunt your brother.
Mm.
That's not, I mean, it's in short of it with them. This is kind of the short version, but they were lonely. And the creator gave them Mayingan, gave them the wolf. And so, and then what happened from there was, they said Mayingan will go on his separate way, but whatever happens to the wolf will happen to them. So they consider that's their brother. And so it's a sacred animal to them. And I wish more Wisconsinites, some hunters, would think that way too, the fringe hunters.
Does Wisconsin manage coyotes similarly to how they manage wolves, or is there some kind of elementary difference?
They hunt them relentlessly. They can hunt them 24/7. And I don't know if this is true or not, but if coyotes used to be had packs, they really don't have a lot of packs now. And I think that they're overhunted. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen to the wolf. It's, the hunters always are saying, well, it doesn't hurt them. It doesn't do damage to the population. But I don't believe that. I believe that the individual matters in conservation and that we should not be hunting them like units. Okay, here's a unit. We're going to take this one out. We're going to control that one. And I think that they should look at if there's depredation, we need to work together to solve that.
An argument I hear a lot, maybe it's not an argument, just a perspective, that the hope of a lot of, I guess, pro-wolf people or people who are devoting their lives to helping the species is that they want to see wolves be just like any other animal on the landscape, not singled out for any positive or negative reason, but just blending in like every other critter. If someone were to present this argument to you, if we should manage prey, or should we? But if we should or do manage prey, then why is it different to manage predators? What would your response be?
Well, I could back up a couple years to my doctor was from India. So, I'd always talk with her, Dr. Jacqueline D'Souza, and she would talk, her and I would talk. She knew I was passionate about wolves. And some of the things that she told me were, amazing. One of the things she told me was there's 7 billion of us on this fragile crust. And see, she also has a microbiology area degree. And she said, one disease is going to wipe us out. So here we are. Hello, COVID, something like 4 years later, she had to go back to India because her family needed her, the health of her parents, and that was before COVID. But she taught me a lot right there that, that's important. And what I've learned about wolves is a biologist told me this, and, they have this beautiful olfactory sense. Like a wolf will walk up to an abandoned deer bed. They'll gently blow on it. So then all those particles blow up and go into their nose and their system. And they can tell if the blood in the pus of the tick that fell off the night before is old, has tooth decay. And they only take the sick. And they can also walk up and they can smell a leaf they chewed on. Same thing. In Wisconsin, we're starting to have CWD. It's a big problem, wasting disease. And I think that wolves, they don't have much of a problem of it right now in wolf territory. So I don't believe that we should manage predators the same. I think we need them. I think looking at COVID, it's really hard. I'm not going to be naive. I'm going to say that people are taking over the earth. They're encroaching onto all the predators' habitat. but we've got to find a way to work with them because they were designed by nature. A hunter was not. He wants to go in and find the biggest elk with the biggest rack, and, deer, wolves don't want to do that. They want to, the Native Americans always believe that the wolf and their prey evolve together, that they save each other. And, that's what I believe too. So I don't believe they need to be hunted. I
Yeah.
think maybe mitigate problems. And that's where, we do have a really good, with Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources has a good department, wildlife damages specialists that have been working hard. A few years ago, I did sell them in some fox lights. I don't know if you're familiar with fox lights, but they're a nighttime predator deterrent. And if you put them in the right spot, they used them and they seem to like them, and I think they are, they go in, they find the damages, and you look at that, we have 1,000, 200 minus 200 now wolves on the landscape, that we don't have a lot of damage. Maybe in a year it's 86,
Mm.
and some of the damage is from, I would say, these bear hunters that get to hunt bear with dogs, they're very stubborn. They're going to run their dogs through areas where in the summertime wolves are keeping their puppies. And so you can imagine the damage. So that's some of the damage. And that's just being stubborn. I think something's got to give there. So I don't think they need to be hunted.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with that. And I can't say confidently that I know 100% why I feel that way, but coyotes, fox, lions, I don't know. It's something very naturally weird about it to me. But I'm not the authority on this subject of what's, natural and unnatural. It's just my personal experience. That's a interesting perspective that you had about because death in the woods is a very natural concept. If anything, it's required to some degree for the health of all living things, that things come and go. And so in that sense, like hunting, the hunter and the prey, the predator and the prey is a very natural dynamic, but it's not that humans hunt that's unnatural. It's the intention and the priority and the level of sustainability that can sometimes come across as unnatural and probably has unintended results that we're not totally an understanding about.
Well, there was the first time that I walked into the woods and found a fresh, not really fresh, I mean, it was maybe a day old, but I found a wolf kill. It was something to see. It was humbling. As I saw the animals, all the meat was gone, and it was laying with the ribs up. And it had, so here's where you use your imagination when you're tracking. You walk in there and you see all this fur in a circle around this dead deer, this wolf killed deer. And then you see the hide is all bunched up laying beside it, crunched down. So you can imagine a pack all surrounding that deer and eating. And it was humbling to see that. And it was humbling to think that deer gave its life so that the wolves could live.
Mm.
And, it's amazing when you see that.
Mm.
I've had some experiences with wolves, and I don't think they need to be hunted.
I would concur with that too. How did you get started tracking?
I don't know. I was always an environmentalist. In fifth grade, I would, I liked Jane Goodall. So I was in our little neighborhood woods staring down a squirrel and trying to be like her, Eventually, I always wanted to track. I always wanted to get in there. So I met Adrian Wydevin, the head wolf biologist, in 1991. Years later, I contacted him again and wanted to be a part of it. And he began this citizens kind of involvement where you could be a volunteer wolf tracker. So I thought that was really good. So I signed up for that. I learned the history of wolves and how to track them. And I went into I was assigned to territory. And like I said, it was Douglas County where the first wolves were starting to establish there. And I went in, and I went in the summer because I wanted to, learn my territory and the roads. And by the way, they're gravel roads, and sometimes for miles, like 10 miles, there's no houses on there. It's just woods. And so I went up there, and I think it was just before dusk, I was driving down the road, and something popped out of the woods, just popped out, sat there, looked at me, and I thought, huh, what is that? Is that a collie? Because she was really light colored. And when wolves are young, they're very light colored. And I was looking at her, and I said, oh my gosh, it's a wolf. I got to see my first wolf in my territory, and I named her White Eyes because she had so much white around her eyes. I came to find out that she was new in the territory too, and I was new. So I knew her for 9 years. She had 9 generations of puppies until she was hit by a car and killed, and that was pretty sad. But I can tell you the joy that you find. I'm sure you've heard the wolf connection howls. When you hear them in the wild, it's something that reverberates right into your soul. It's like it vibrates. You can feel it, and it's usually it's in the. If it's the puppies, it's even more because we do howl surveys in the summer, so we can tell if there's puppies. So that's how I got involved, and I've been hooked ever since.
Yeah. Stephen and I can echo that. I know every time I step out of my car here, right before when I get on the property, and it's almost like they know that I show up, and there's a howl through the entire pack. It's a pretty cool, welcoming sign when you get there. And it's just nice. It sort of settles everything down for me. I love it so much. What was your favorite? Did you have a wolf? Was White Eyes a wolf that you had a unique attachment to?
It would be White Eyes. I eventually am going to write a book, and I'm going to research the area so I can get stories about her too. Because she was amazing. She just, this is an amazing story about wolves, and I can't quantify this because I'm not a scientist, but it's, my experience. I would do a lot of howl surveys in the summer, and one summer I could hear the wolf pack, her pack howling about 1.5 miles away. And so I was like, oh, well, that's where they are. So I need to head there. All of a sudden, the puppies were right there by me howling. And I thought, uh-oh, that's not good because we're taught not to disturb them. But it was really hard because they were so cute. One was light colored. I could see him in the moonlight. And the other one was black because her mate was black. So I was like, I better get out of here because I don't want to cause them harm. So I left the area. And then that fall, I decided, a little while later, maybe a year later, I decided to do some more howl surveys, and I didn't get any responses. And I was really worried. I was thinking, uh-oh, what happened to them? Well, when I was up there one time with my son, Jacob, I told him, you go ahead and howl. Let's see, if they respond to you. And they responded to him. What does that tell you? Did I make that wolf mad?
Wow.
Did she lose maybe trust for me? Because I'd known her for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden, nothing.
Wow.
So I kind of think yeah.
I mean, over your 20 plus years that you've been there, what are some of the things that you tell new volunteers or anybody that comes on to WDNS as a volunteer? What's some of the knowledge that you dispel to people that either come on to the project or that you're out and about that you're trying to give people just as general information?
Well, we're all about education, educating so you can advocate. We're grassroots. I think right now I'm up to 4 writers on the blog, which gives quite the diversity there. And I'm trying to go into doing some podcasts. in the North Woods trying to get into, communicating. And I just tell everybody that, one of the biggest things people want to go tracking with me, and they're all like, I'm going to see a wolf. I can't wait. So they're looking through the woods. And then I'll point down, look at the track. There's a track right down here. If you look, you're going to see the signs that wolves leave behind. And I would rather not have them see them. I would rather have them be afraid of people. And I think they are. When I first started tracking in 2000, there were 66 wolf packs in Wisconsin.
Wow.
And yeah, that's amazing. And at that time, wolves would not even step into a snowmobile track. They wanted to stay clear of people. So I always tell people, usually those are the people that want to advocate for wolves. They love wolves. And I want people to understand that they have a right to be free. That's my biggest thing, is let's keep them free and wild. Gray wolves are Wisconsin's wild legacy, and we need to respect that. We need to learn about them.
You've talked about this legacy for Wisconsin. And I believe I read someone else was saying it. Well, you said it earlier on that there's this black eye on Wisconsin. What kind of efforts do you think need to be made to sort of restore, if it needs to be restored, Wisconsin's environmental or natural pride in the way that they advocate for the environment and natural species that are there?
Well, I think definitely the Department of Natural Resources, the new Democratic governor is restoring the science back in. That's what we need, because it's not just about wildlife; it's about our land and our water and all of these things. So I definitely think that Wisconsin is the wolf hunt. What happened in February is something that had to happen to give the black eye, because now people are noting that and going, that was barbarism full out. So it kind of showed how far that these fringe hunters are willing to go. And some of the reasons that they wanted to have the hunt, get this, is because they feared that they'd put them back on the endangered species list. To me, that's so ridiculous. They wanted to hunt as many of them as they could before they get put back on. And so I think Wisconsin needs to move forward. We need to open the conversation, like in the article you read from Jill's article, and move forward that way and start opening up the talk in the North Woods where, people live with wolves. There's a lot of people. Adrian Wydevin, a couple of weeks ago, had a little Zoom meeting in his small town cable at their historic, this little historic museum up there. And it's a little tiny town. Maybe there's like 10 people in town. I don't know. But it's really small. It's in the North Woods. And I couldn't believe how many people came on. There was like 200 and some people on that Zoom meeting that wanted to know what was going on. So if we can, the people that live in the North Woods are beginning to talk. They're appalled. They're upset. They want to know more. And I think bringing in education, collaboration, working with farmers, offering them services. I've spoken with Susanna Aisha Stone, hoping to get her to come in so we can get a project going where we're going to talk about, working on non-lethal. I mean, DNR does have a pretty good program, but if we can bring in her organization, we can even make it better. I think that's what needs to happen.
When people say, we can't coexist with wolves here, what's the reason? What are the justifications? What are some of the things that folks are saying?
I don't know. I think it's fear. The kids at the bus stop, the wolves are going to eat their kids. That's never happened, and that's, and I think there's a responsibility when you live in the North Woods. We have cougars that come through. We have black bears. We have 20,000 black bears in Wisconsin, and we have like 1,200 wolves. And I think it's a responsibility that when you do live in the North Woods, that you take responsibility for your family. You don't let your children roam free.
Yeah.
You don't let your dogs roam free in the woods. There's a responsibility there.
Yeah.
So that's what I would tell them is, hey, what's your reasons? Why do you say that? I
Yeah,
would just ask them that.
yeah, that's the thing I can't. I like to be in the gray area in a lot of cases where I'm just like I can see why everyone feels this way or that way, but this fear of wolves doing harm to human beings, I can't figure out the basis for that. I mean, mountain lions kill people every year. Black bears even kill people regularly. I mean, in terms of predator issues, grizzlies every year. Where do you think that unwarranted um it's risky to say unwarranted because some folks probably think it is warranted, but I'm pretty confident in saying that it is unwarranted. Where do you think that comes from without the evidence to support it?
I really believe a lot of it is political. I believe that the politicians, if they want to get votes, they're going to make the propaganda towards the wolf look even worse than it is. That's what I've always seen. So I think it's politically driven. I think people that are afraid of wolves, it's not everybody in the North Woods. Life goes on. Wolves haven't been killing anybody. Kids are going to school in the North Woods. People are living their lives among, 1,000, 200, I got to say this, minus the 200 wolves. And there hasn't been that big of a problem. I can understand where if you're a farmer and that's your livelihood and wolves are, take one of your animals, that's a fear, they're afraid. Well, we can work with them and they are reimbursed and we try to help them. So I think that's where all of that is coming from. It's driven by politics. And it's either the wolf is really loved or it's really hated. But somewhere we've got to have a conversation.
Yeah, we've been having this discussion and it's really been ramping up the last bunch of episodes. And I spoke with Suzanne Asha Stone, and her methods are tremendous. They work. She's been working with, sheep, flocks of sheep and wolves living together. And that's a tremendous call on your part to try and get her involved because she is very good at what she does. Do you feel that the education coming from the individuals and the people that live in the North Woods could maybe hold more in the court of public opinion as individuals who live within these forests and these boundaries with these prey animals, with these cougars, with these bears, with these wolves, and their say and their experiences could help sort of bridge this gap that's starting to widen a little bit?
I believe that's definitely true. I'm basically going to try to do that. I have a People in Wolves talk show, and I'm trying to, talk with people in the North Woods. I mean, when you're in the North Woods, it's completely different from, say, the Madison take. The Madison advocacy, they're all, saying that they're rednecks up north and they're, this and that and another thing. But they're not when you go up there. If, for instance, I had to get a map a few years back, a new plot map. So I knew, in my territory who owned the land that I was going to sneak on, around to find out if there's wolves and look at tracks. I was always trying to be careful. And I was standing in the Douglas County Forestry office and I was just standing there, and I was at the counter and I was waiting for somebody to come up and I looked above the counter and it's all wood, there are wolf puppies up there. Pictures of the wolf puppies up there in Douglas County. So you got to wonder, is this political hype? What are the people that really live among them? Do they all hate them? I don't think so. I think this is where we need to go in and we need to focus. We need to come in. And once a year, Wisconsin has this Wolf Awareness Week, Wisconsin's Wolf Awareness Week in October. And we have a speaker and, don't tell Suzanne, but we're trying to get her. Don't tell her yet. She would be perfect to come up there to speak, I think. And we have, programs and they take everybody out tracking right into the wolf territory. And it's amazing when these people from all over, like in New York and that come in and they see a wolf track for the first time. they light up. They go, "Oh, is that a wolf track?" I went out with them one time and they saw a deer and they went crazy. That's a deer. But it's really nice, to see that there is that love, and that there is that education, and that is like Timber Wolf Alliance. They're a nonprofit and they work, teaching people about the history of wolves and how to track them, and they've been around for decades. And I think that's where the education is.
Is that the goal for Douglas County News, Wolves of Douglas County News? Is that the goal also, education, putting opinion and fact on there as well? Because I know there are some opinion pieces that are published. Is that really the goal?
To be factual and get education out there, and I'm all about starting conversations, getting people to talk. We also have a show in Italy. My writer Brunella Pernagati is in Italy. She lives in Turin, and she totally loves wolves. And she's learning about them. And she's going to have a show in 2 weeks, and we do live streaming for that one. And she's going to be talking with Luca and then Antonio. And one of them is a tracker, and one of them is they're having the same problems as we are here. And so we're going to have a show. And so that's getting it out there. Opening that conversation will save lives of livestock and pets, and save wolves as well if we can get in there. That's what I'm about it, is opening up that conversation. I mean, and right now people are very angry. I mean, the wolf advocacy in Wisconsin generally they're so angry that you could cut it with a knife. It's that thick. And rightly so. I mean, they were left out of decision making, and this was forced on them. So I think once we move past that, we can begin opening up the conversation.
Such an important lesson that we need to learn as a country is just not to just dismiss certain communities and certain cultures that we don't understand or that we've lost touch with, and maybe all of this stuff would manifest as more balanced experiences and events.
And hopefully for the wolf, I've got to say, they're beautiful animals. They're wonderful sentient beings. I mean, I had a wolf howling one evening, a lone wolf in a pine tree stand. I couldn't see him, but I could hear him. And they were imitating my howl. So then I threw out some notes, just kidding around, like singing, and they were imitating me. I mean,
why don't they imitate me at Wolf Connection? I've tried before. They don't. They only howl when they howl if I open a gate.
They have a purpose for howling. They're telling you to get out of here,
Right.
And you guys come on over. We'll go out, and you can. I'll teach you how to howl.
We would love to do that. Actually,
oh
that'd
man,
be awesome.
That's going to be our next.
That's it, July, man. Let's get out there and film some stuff and do a thing about Rachel in the field.
Yes, with Adrian Wydeven and a bunch of us. Yes,
it's fascinating that we've all been talking about this dynamic of, and especially Wisconsin. I feel like out of the states that Stephen and I have talked to individuals about in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, it seems as though Wisconsin has this unique dynamic of the split of people that are in the middle, in the gray area, willing to work together. And it doesn't seem as though the fringes are so large in Wisconsin. It seems as though there are, Stephen, you said it before, and Rachel, you said it a couple times, that people are willing to find the common ground more so because these wolves integrated themselves naturally into the landscape, and people have been living with them probably longer than most states across this country. Do you see that in the favor of, again, when the wolf hunt comes around again, in the management, that there is hope in that area?
When the hunt comes around again, I don't know what's going to happen because it's mandated by law. And right now, the party that's in power is conservative. And they're not going to do anything about the law. And we have a Democratic governor. So it looks like they'll be hunted, but we're hoping that we can change that. And I do see a lot of people, I do get messages from people that are living up north. This one lady a few years back, and I forget her name, messaged me and said, that is so terrible that they're saying that about how bad wolves are. And she talked about how they could hear the wolves howling in their cabin because they had a cabin and they were living in St. Paul, Minnesota, but then to go up to my area to a cabin. And she said that they're wonderful animals. She said one day, oh, her name's Mickey. I just remember her name. Mickey was out walking her two big dogs through the woods, and one of them kind of moved away from her. And all of a sudden, she wondered what was going on because her dogs just froze and stood there and looked at her. And she looked, and there were like 2 or 3 wolves just staring right at both of them. She was like, oh. She got a hold of her dogs and backed up and left. And the wolves did nothing. And she ran back and told her husband, and she was like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. And I wrote the story, and I should probably put that out again. But so that doesn't seem as bad, does it? Those wolves probably knew her, and they just kind of ran into her. So, but I'm not going to be naive to say that a sick wolf could cause problems or something could happen. You never know, but you should have healthy fear of a predator. But I never have a problem when I'm up there. I don't have any fear of them. So I think the conversation up there, I think if we can reach more and more people, and I believe in telling the stories like Mickey's, telling the stories about interactions with the gray wolf in Wisconsin should be told. So that's one of the things I'm going to do with my podcast is start talking to people, about the positive stories that they've had with their interactions with gray wolves. I think when you tell those stories, those narratives, people, it's true stories, they can't, it's a narrative, it's a true story. I think that's what will make a difference.
No, I fully agree with that. I think the more factual, scientific, true narratives that get out there, those are the ones that are really going to make the impact and the difference, and hopefully will stick with the individuals or the groups so that it comes across as the perspective, like I said, just of truth and not of any sort of major overreaction. I think that's where a lot of this comes down on both sides. Is there's the overreaction of anger, of fear, and sometimes that leads us to do things that are destructive, as Stephen said, both for us as a species, as human beings, and for those that sort of stand in our path. Is there a place where people can find more information about some of the political things that are going on in Wisconsin? Are these bills or are these laws or any of these things made available to the public that people can sort of read through and see what actually these laws that are enacted, what it actually entails and what they can read through so they can contact people there to sort of voice their opinion or get more information more so that they can understand why things happen there in Wisconsin?
Well, if you look at the Gray Wolf Wisconsin DNR, they have a whole website on the wolf. They have about the depredations. And then if you want to learn about Act 169, you just Google Act 169 wolf hunt and you have all that information. And it's shocking. I think one of the biggest things that people need to, be appalled by is the use of dogs. There were times when it was amazing when I was in the woods and I was tracking down a road that was a mile long, and every 10th of a mile they were marking all over the place. The whole pack was there. They were doing scrapings and, raising their legs, leaving, raised leg urinations. That usually means that's the alpha pair. So they were doing a lot of signing, we call it. And some scat. And I was every 10th of a mile, I was like, what is this about? And this was in January, late January. get to the very end of it, and there is a tiny pine tree with snow on it, with rust-colored urine on it. And that
Hmm.
said that that female was in estrus. She was in heat. So the whole pack was there at the edge of the territory. So that's not a good thing. And so when they're going to try to run dogs on wolves during that time, they're very territorial.
Mm.
Can you imagine? It's not good.
Mm-mm.
So if they can work on that, and that is removing, I think really right there, no other state that hunts wolves allows this. So I have a wolf hounding fact sheet on my Wolves of Douglas County, Wisconsin. So you would go wolves of Douglas County, Wisconsin.com and, hit the search bar up there, um, a track sheet, wolf sheets on any of those, and you'll see them on fact sheets about, wolf hunting. All of that is in there. It's really sad.
Hmm.
And the Center for Biological Diversity has a lot of stuff on there too, on their site about wolves and some of the things that they're doing. I believe Earth Justice right now has a lawsuit out to put them back on. So that's another one you can go to is support those big organizations because they are really working hard to protect our wildlife and wolves.
Is that kind of like the first order of business for some of these initiatives to um, get rid of the dog allowance?
Yep, I would like to see the dogs out. I've been fighting that since 2012. I decided to keep fighting it because it's got to go. There's no these bear hunters are a fringe group, and they hunt bear and they cause conflicts. And they get reimbursed $250 when they're hunting bear, and a wolf defends their puppies and kills their dog. It's wrong on so many levels. I mean, it's a value system right there. I mean, how can you treat a endangered a species like that?
Yeah.
You know, or any species like that.
Not even that, but I just don't understand the concept of being an outdoorsman and then to just be constantly trying to, micromanage every critter that's out there and every experience to work in my favor. I need to be able to predict it all the time and it needs to work in my favor all the time. And only the critters I like can be on the landscape. And if any experience is unfavorable, I need to be compensated for that. I'm just not sure what the benefit of that perspective is.
Well, we have such an extinction crisis. I mean, my dream was always going to Africa, and seeing the game. It's just, the wild animals. I mean, they call them game back there, but they're not. They're wild herds. And we're just not going to see that now because man has encroached on every living thing. And the biggest thing that I'm learning is like they hunt the bear, they feed the bear, they basically are managing the bear in Wisconsin so it can be hunted up to 20,000 bears, and then they're complaining about the wolves. And the biggest thing that gets me is they're interfering with the natural history of the animal. The bear eats berries in the fall. The bear has a natural way, and now they're interfering with that. So the cubs are learning from their parents, where do you go to get the bait? The human food, the cookies.
Mm.
And so you're changing that. And so where's our responsibility as human beings to allow those animals to have their natural history? And
Mm.
every single part of it is tied together. You know, the acorns fall off the tree and some of them become oak and some of them are eaten by the bear and the wild animals. Um, we're just doing too much damage.
Yeah.
We need to have a conversation.
Yeah. We're just kind of obsessed with control and comfort, and it's not a good recipe for the wild.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's really sad. In the
Yeah.
in the I don't know. My first Earth Day years ago, I've just learned how selfish human beings can be, but we can change that.
Yeah. Do you see that as more of a wave? Do you see that? I don't know why this question keeps coming up every time we talk to somebody. Do you feel in Wisconsin, since it's your backyard, that there is more of the younger generation that's involved in ecological, environmental, natural preservation or study in some way, shape, or form? Do you see that coming through the pipeline in Wisconsin at all?
Yes, I just got a young writer that wanted to write on my blog, and I think it's starting now. There is I forget the name of it, but it's a young people's environmental organization is starting. And I see there's a few people starting to come into that, and I'm always I've gone into the schools, I've talked to young people, I've taken kindergartners out and taught them how to howl. And the more that we can get the young people involved in their planet, in wildlife, and what's going on, the better. I think I'm seeing it. I'm seeing where more and more young people are getting involved.
There's hope. And Steven and I are always looking for the positives and the hope in it. And it's people such as yourself and the Suzanne Asha Stones and the Carter Niemeyers and the Mike Phillips and the people that we've been speaking to lately that, you guys are legends in what you're doing and really doing wonderful, wonderful work. And we can't thank you enough for all that you're doing. You're still doing because it doesn't seem like you're slowing down by any means.
Carter is phenomenal. I love what he says. He's just this, I don't know, I call him this cowboy. The way he says it, he just, he says, yep, there's always too many wolves, according to these people, and they just want to kill them.
If I learned anything from all these interviews, it's just that it's got way more to do with human beings and their sense of who's controlling them and how they're controlling their environment. Every episode, I just learn more and more that this is less about animals and more about people.
Yeah, I think that's why my talk show is called People and Wolves,
Mm-hmm.
because it is about people, and you want to open up the conversation, and you want to get them talking and discussing and contributing.
Yeah.
And I think in Wisconsin over the last 21, I think, maybe 20 years or so, it's been one party. And they're having their way and they're dominating and not giving people a choice. And that's going to cause a lot of anger. And hopefully the future will show that, we came to the table. The tribes came in. I mean, this is the most, when they first had the conversation where the first NRB meeting, the tribes weighed in. That was the first time that I heard them really talk strongly about their brother, the wolf. They were feeling very strong about it. And I was like, yes, it needs to be said.
That's what we need. More conversation, more talking and less divisiveness. That's the only way this is going to get solved, if at all. Rachel, I want to ask one last question for me. When you hear the word wolf, what is something that comes to your mind?
Wild, free, and he should be allowed to be free. He gives us much.
Please tell everybody where they can find Wolves of Douglas County and any other organization, any other social media, if Instagram, things like that, where they can find work that you're doing and others such as yourself in Wisconsin.
I'm at Wolves of Douglas County, Wisconsin.com, all one word. I have a blog, and then I have a People and Wolves talk show, and then I also have one in Italy, in Italian as well. And another resource, I think, is I'm writing my book about white eyes, and that's on social media, on Facebook, the story of white eyes. And I think also I invite people to check out what's happening with on the 19th. They're closing the applications, and what they're going to be doing is starting the conversation. They're going to close the application process. So we'll find out what wolf advocacy groups applied to be on there, and they're going to rewrite the wolf management plan. So if you go to Wisconsin DNR Wolf Management Plan, you can see updates there. And then also try Timberwolf Alliance.
Mm.
And then check out Wisconsin Green Fire. It has a lot of scientists and concerned citizens on it.
Great. That is fantastic. Yeah, we're going to point everybody to those sites, and we're going to take you up on that Wisconsin trip at some point. So be ready for Stephen and I to show up at some point.
Can't wait.
We'll be coming out in full force, giving you whatever you need and helping you do a show.
That is tremendous. Rachel Tilseth, yeah, this is great. Rachel Tilseth, thank you so much for all that you do, for all that you continue to do. You are an incredible human being. Thank you for being here with us.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, John and Steve.
Howls to all of you out there, and Stephen and I will speak with you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Looking to support Wolf Connection or sponsor one of the wolves in our pack? Just go to wolfconnection.org, click on the donate tab, and find out more information.